Hi everyone, this is Dan from Romania, and today we're going to talk about the new Sennheiser 550 that was released early this year. These are the headphones. I can start with the story. Some of you know because I started Romania from pure passion in 2012, but my story actually is a bit older than that. Not a lot, but a bit older than that. Basically, my first audiophile headphones were the Sennheiser 598, I think, or 595, I think, at that point. It was in 2008 or something like that. And after a while, after I listened to them from a audio card directly from the PC. I think it was an Asus Essence ST, and I thought I had the best thing ever. At that point, had no idea what's going on in in this field. And at one point, I found out about Sennheiser 650 through headfi.org, where I actually met one of my best friends today, who runs soundnews.net. And he introduced me to Sennheiser 650. And that's basically when I found out a lot about headphones and the fact that the Asus SSNT was a good sound card, but it was like, it was not the best choice, especially for the Sennheisers because they had a bigger impedance and not as easy to drive. But I remember how I got into this hobby and how much I was impressed by the 595 being the first experience with audiophile headphones. And keep in mind at that point in time, we didn't have a lot of options in 2008. There were a few, but first of all, I didn't know about them. Secondly, I think we didn't have a lot of options in Romania, and I think some of them were expensive at that point in time. 1,000 euros was quite a lot back then, but and I think it was like a few, Sennheiser 880, the 800s basically. Sorry about that. The T1 from Biodynamic, maybe something from Grado, and a few couple of more, but of course the stacks. But yeah, I remember how impressed I was, and basically I was curious to see how this evolved. So I wanted to. I always get back to the 650 sometimes because um, the jump from 595 to 650 was very interesting. I listened to Sando at that point in time. He had a very interesting system back then, and that today as well. But for the system that he has had there, and I still remember it. It's now imprinted into my brain because he had like a Wu Audio S6 SC or something like that. It's a tube amplifier that had a special separate power. Supply with the tube as well, and he had an R2R DAC power lamp deck, basically tube deck at that point in time, and the sound on these were like, for me, it's at least at that point in time, was like amazing. It was so full of life, so natural, I mean, I never experienced something like that until then, right? It was 2008, and when I got home, I was like, I was really um, I was like quite pissed off because it didn't have anything to do with the sound I had at Sando, the same headphones, but on the Asus Essence ST sound card, it sounded like crap in comparison. But nevertheless, I still have the one. After a few years, of course, I went into other headphones like LCD2 880. Uh, um, 800s actually, and the other headphones, and a lot of headphones since then. But a few years back, I actually bought this from a friend. This is a older version of 650. I mean, 2014 or something like that, and it's a kiss molded. Basically, it's what they did is to he did is to remove the foam from here, and then some materials on this part to help with the damping and dampening and speed basically of the bass and stuff like that, but to reduce the vibrance and help the bass. And it's actually, I think it was pretty well made because I kept it and it sounds great today as well. I kind of missed the latest two versions of the new 660 series. Now it's actually S2 version, and I will have to take that for a spin at home as well. But definitely, I started with the 550, which is basically a very interesting evolution. Definitely amazing in terms of. I remember the back then the 550 was like lesser than 595. Now this is not the case. It's quite, and even the price is reflecting that, because they're not very cheap. They're $350, I believe, but it's definitely very good evolution. It's closer to the 600 series than anything else. Um, and it's I think the build quality, it's kind of in the same category of the 500 series. It's a lot of plastic and it's not as well built of the 600s, but still very very light. I think resistant headphones. They 230 grams compared to 260 on the 600 series. I think that they're quite comfortable. It's if you they're so light. Sometimes I forget they're on my head. There is some pressure here sometimes, but they're so light it doesn't apply to it. I'm just saying that the headband can be a bit better here, right on top. Um, they don't have a replaceable cable, so that's a bit annoying, but that's life. So let's get into how they actually sound. So and I'm gonna do a bit of a comparison to my old 650 Kiss moded. Um, so this is not necessarily a stock or default sounding 650, but definitely a good one. Um, I would say that I overall enjoyed the sound a lot. It took me a while to understand a bit because I was actually quite used to the 650 sound, and even if you look at the measurement, and if we start to look at this a bit objectively, I would say that you will see from the start that the 550 is considerably more linear and more correct in the frequency response, because compared to the 650, you will see that the bass is quite constant, and actually it's flatter even under 100 hertz, and it's not going like down like the 650 below 100 hertz. It actually keeps very well until 40, actually 30 hertz. It's quite flat in that area. Also, if you also look above the bass, the I mean the mid bass, it's still quite elevated, and in the 650, actually the whole region between 50 hertz until four, not actually until 800 hertz. It's quite elevated on the 650 compared to this to the 550. 550. Basically, also after 1K, the new 550 is more present. You will see that it's more linear in general. It has less dips. It has a bit of a peak between 4 and 5 kilohertz. I don't think that's a problem, but it's still in. While the 650 has a peak in 3 kilohertz, the 550 doesn't have the same peak there. It's more linear in that aspect. Even in the deep afterwards in 6 kilohertz area, it goes. The 550 is a bit less in terms of how big the dip goes. But then you will see that between 8 and 12 kilohertz, the 550 is actually winning a lot in terms of the treble presence there, and you will hear that, of course, in the presentation. While the high 650 will have a bigger peak after 14 kilohertz. So that's interesting because It's this is the for the from for the 650. You will see that in general people will say it has a smooth treble, but it's not necessarily. I mean, it is airy because it has that peak over 14 kilohertz. So basically, it's kind of airy because it has that, but the treble is not as tight or as detailed because the hit itself is not as impactful because the lower area of the treble is not as present or as detailed. This actually is the new 550 is considerably more, let's say, enjoyable in a treble without being uh, bright. And Overall, it's in the frequency response, you will see that basically it's interesting because it is quite apparent the difference in terms of they tried to make it more linear. I think they succeeded. Now, in terms of subjective description, it will be interesting. But before going into subjective, I just wanted to say that in terms of distortion, actually both headphones are great. um, and up to it's 30 hertz, it's actually up to 40 hertz, it's considerably lower than 1% THD. So that's good. And overall, it wobbles around 0.2 in general over the frequency response. So that's a very good distortion realization there. Both headphones wander over 1% below 50 hertz, but um, I would say that they're quite similar in distortion. So that's a good thing considering the this is the still the 5 series, right? So that's a good thing. Um, so going into the subjective sound, and this is very interesting because for me, I got used to the 650 sound and I enjoy it a lot for what it offers. It offers like silky, smooth treble. It offers quite engaging experience in terms of vocals, like vocals that are present, quite smooth, transparent, and it's like someone is singing into your ears, right? I love that experience. It also, at least in the Kiss mode, it's actually quite dynamic. It doesn't go as deep, but it's dynamic because you will see because of the mid bass hump. But I would say that in general, I would present this experience on the 650 as an euphonic musical experience, intimate, right, and dynamic. With the 550, I had to wait and listen to it for a while after I switched from 650 because the first impression was like I was losing something. Right, the music was pushed away from me. But after a while, I realized that actually it's a very interesting presentation, difference in how it actually the music is intended to be present on a 550. Of course, it's a matter of taste, right? But I can enjoy both. It's interesting that you have to let your brain a bit to get used to the sound signature because after a while, when putting back the 650, it sounded a bit weird after the 550. So it's both ways. It goes both ways. But what I liked about the 550 is, like, of course, the bass was actually quite linear, right? And it was very apparent, right? It was not as punchy or in your face as with the 650, at least the Kiss mode, but it was quite correct sounding and it has a good extension. And it was faster, right? It was not as punchy, but it was faster on its feet, right? So and it went deeper and it was more apparent from that perspective. So when a drum hits, you feel the full extension of it. Not just the boom at the beginning with a strong force, but you will feel the extension of the note there with the 550 better than with the 650. Now, what is different, I would say that from a if I try to put this on a stage level, um, with the 650 is like I'm listening to the music we on the stage with the bands, right, with the singer. Um, it's right there in your face. Music is like the vocals are like singing in your ears. That's a very nice effect. I like it a lot. But we with the and you basically look at the scene, right? You listen to the music from the stage, and you see the sound losing into into the hall, the music hall. And with the 550, you're basically listening from the audience and not from the first rows. It's actually the mid level of the stage, right? The room. Um, so it, I would it's the I would say that even if more engaging, it's a very different perspective, and I like them both because, to some degree, it's easier with 550 to concentrate on everything easier because you see it from above, let's say, or not above, but you're a bit further away from the scene. You have more space for you to concentrate on all the scene and all the sounds in the scene. With the 650, it's a bit more engaging. The bass will be more impactful. The chords will have more vibration, will have more impact in the attack, while with the 550 will have less impact in the chords, but it will have the zing, the last zing from the note more apparent, right? Um, the vocals are great in both, but again, with the 650, they are closer to you. It's like singing in your ears. With this, is like listening from the further away row from the scene. Um, in terms of speed, I would give the speed to 550. The headphones are actually faster in general, I would say, even from the bass and everything. And even the separation of instruments, this is interesting. I would give a bit more to 550 compared to the older 650 keys moded, right? Um, so that's interesting. In terms of the treble again is considerably more uh, um, present on the 550. You will have less dips. You will have more presence in between 6 and 11 kilohertz, and that's quite apparent. It's not bright at all, but we will have more detail there, more engagement, and I would say even attack like notes will be more defined in the treble region with the 550. Now, I wanted to go back to the vocals. The difference is that one difference that I want to make is that, is that the 550 sometimes can be a bit more sibilant, right? With 650, there's no presence of that whatsoever, right? So there's a touch of sibilance present on the 550 in some songs. That's probably because of the peak it has in the after 4 kilohertz. But um, overall, it's a different presentation. I think that both are very good. I need to listen to the new series, the 660, the S2 now. Apparently, I missed the S1. But now, if you ask me which I prefer, it's hard to tell. I think my personal preference it's still towards this type of sound from the 650, which has the vocals closer to you. I like to be more on the stage. I like to have more impact in the lower region. Of course, as you have seen, because we have more presence between 300, 200 and 600 hertz. This is where the vocals are having that effect of singing in your ear. It gives them more a breath, right? So that's I think that's a bit more of my preference, and also the fact that it's the bass is more impactful, even if that's more correct on the 550, and also the fact that. Instruments or chords in general, the strike is very it's actually the more tactile on the 650, but basically the mid range is more present because the lower mid range has more meat. Let's put it there. So that's, I think that's my personal preference. But I actually enjoy them both a lot, and I think the 550 it's a very good step up from Sennheiser, and also an interesting new type of presenting the sound. I'm very sure that a lot of people will actually ending preferring this type of sound, because I met a lot of people who like this type of sound more than the other. So um, oh, I actually forgot to say that the difference in the amplification needs. I think this is a 150 ohms compared to the 300 ohms needed for 600 series. This is much easier to drive in general. Now, in my case, usually when I have balanced amplifiers, it's when in the single-ended output is less power. So yeah, but in general, this is much easier to drive. So I think it's also 107 or 100, 106 dBs to reach 900, 990 dBs. um, and basically, that's also a good thing. So you still, actually, I think you still need a good rig for it to shine. In my case, I actually tested with big my big system with the Rogna Wave Dream, with the reference with the Bliss KT amplifier. So it sounded great with that, because it's also, the Bliss also has the high output impedance. It's still the 150. It's still in that category. So yeah, I think this is a good headphone. I think it's a very interesting sound, and the fact that it's lighter on its feet, both subjectively and objectively, in terms of the not as doesn't have as meat in the as much meat on the bones like the 650, but also it's lighter on its feet because it's faster in general in the sound, especially in the bass area, but also in others. The fact that it has a considerably linear sound compared to 650, more presence in treble, and overall quite. It still has the flavor of the Sennheiser 600 series to some degree, so it's still the same flavor, right? So it still does the house sound. Even if it's quite different, because probably it's the same family of drivers, even if it's a lighter driver with a different coating. But still, yeah, I enjoyed this headphone a lot, and actually recommend it. If you have a chance to listen to it, please do, because you might be impressed by the sound. And please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one. Bye everyone.